My name is Asher Reg. Today I'm going to be discussing about the poetry analysis essay I have done over my poem of choice, We Wear the Mask. The reason I chose this poem is because I'm very interested in the idea of emotional suppression within a judgmental world, as it sort of reflects on the real world currently. Like terrorist attacks, terrible political leaders, all that stuff. It also reminds me of a certain movie known as The Mask from I don't remember when it was released, but it also does a similar idea of masking your true persona, or something along those lines. Within the story, it delves into the idea of people wearing a specific type of emotional barrier, or in this case, a mask, to suppress their true feelings or identity for the world. In order for me to better understand what this poem was, I first decided to research what the central idea of the poem was, as well as a summary of the poem itself to make sure I didn't miss any important details. I tried searching for a summary of the poem in order to figure out what it was about, and I did find one summary on the website called Lit Charts, where it also described how the author, Dunbar, created this poem during a time where racism was still a harsh topic in America. Racial suppression didn't just go down instantly once presidency got better. For preparation of this poem, I don't usually prefer to pre-write my thoughts. I feel that it usually limits my ability to think about the poem. I usually find it easier to organize my thoughts using my head instead of a piece of paper. So I don't accidentally overcomplicate myself with those sort of things. As I was going through the poem and trying to jot down some notes about how I was going to write my essay, I learned the central theme of the poem can be reflected in today's society because while racism isn't much of a serious problem in America today, people are still suffering internally and they end up masking their pain before the world. You know how it is, people are going through some things, it's sort of a big deal. And when I was writing this essay, I do wish there was a way I could have expressed my feelings about it a bit better. I felt like my analysis was a bit too short for my liking, and I believe there could have been a bit more for me to address. I didn't cover everything about the poem, but I tried going down to more specific aspects. Anyway, my thesis statement or topic I was trying to go for in this poem in particular was that Paul Laurence Dunbar's We Wear the Mask reflects on the emotional toll of masking one's true self in a judgmental society through the usage of its comparative literary elements. By that, I mean he uses many different types of literary elements to help compare the idea of emotional suppression to different aspects of how people would act on the stage. A good example would be through the usage of metaphors, as the mask itself, which is mentioned multiple times throughout the poem, represents the emotional barriers via emotional suppression before that certain world of ours. And to better explain this, I have myself a visual aid. This was drawn up by myself, and as you can see, is depicting a actor wearing a mask before the stage. The setting seems to reflect that of a stage performance, since people constantly put on that facade to act out of character with their persona. But if you look closely at the mask, you can see that it is crying. This is supposed to reflect how the actual person behind the mask feels in that certain emotional state. And the reason it's hardly visible is to reflect how people can barely tell the distinguished traits behind that mask. In other words, it's hard to tell what their true feelings are at the times, which is a sad truth about this world. The reason I chose this visual aid is because I wanted something to reflect the way the poem was structured, as well as something that could be easily viewed. Again, it's set up like a performance on a stage, and I wanted to give this main speaker in the poem, or in this case the main actor, the visual features that complement the text. And I believe that's all we covered. Thank you for listening, and I hope you go out in the world and do the best you can, and try to express your true feelings to the world.